I've made a massive amount of progress on the game. I've added music, I've added a title screen, it's animated, I've added the beginning story mode character select screen. I've refined the code to eliminate some of the unnecessary cycle use, but also to free up ROM space. And I'm going to talk about some of those things. So the first thing I'm going to do is just show the game in progress and how it's looking now. We're going to start with the title screen. Now the title screen doesn't go into the playable mode yet, so certain variables will be changed here in the very beginning there before it actually gets into the code's main loop that will show everything so far. And in this, I'm going to try to discuss different ways to do things like this if you code. So today I have the zoom a little closer, so if anybody's following this to learn or to participate, then they can actually see the code. Okay, so I've added here the A block. Everything's different now. The patterns are all totally different now. So A block actually goes subs to the character graphics, but the playfield graphics are now part of a go-to loop. That way we're not dealing with so many go subs. Any go subs that I could keep within that bank I've done, and that's how the music is operating, is it's staying within that first bank. So the first bank has my blocks that reach out for character graphics. It also has my music, and but the actual draw screen finishing of the details that puts everything up on the screen is actually happening in the fifth bank. Okay. Now I've added more characters. I've got a total of 12 different characters made from 6 distinct characters. So I have different color variations. 2 of the characters are not playable. They're, at least not yet. I might make them like a bonus if you beat the game or something, then you can unlock them. But they are meant to be boss characters. Okay. The method I was talking about before, I went ahead and expanded on that. In the last episode I talked about combining, making one character and then combining layers to be able to get as many characters out of that one as possible. And so I've done that in this case. I went ahead and named all the characters. Okay, so in the code here I'm also using remarks, which I haven't used before in games. I usually just used a journal, but because this is becoming so complex and I want to have a little bit easier time myself digging through the code to find out what's going on, I've went ahead and used remarks. So you can see up at the beginning of A block, let's see if I can get about right here, we see this remark, and it says get first sprite for left player graphics. And you can see now C actually has a 0 position. And that's so that the title screen can function without any sprites, at least at first. Then we have each of the 6 first sprite calls for each character. As you can see, if you look on the right, let's see if I can point that out too, around this area here, we're looking at the different names of each of the characters. As you can see, some are being repeated through the list. It says C1 through 6, that's the left side character's variable. D is the right side character's variable. So one's player 0 sprites, the other's player 1 sprites. And it says Ryu, then girl, then Ryu, then Guile, then Ryu, then girl. Okay, so what I've done for the left side characters is you start out as the Ryu character. Now these are all, of course, these are my own code names for them to remind me that they're based on those characters. In the game, they're all going to have, you know, non-Capcom IP games, so, or non-Capcom intellectual property names that I've come up with, and I'm using brands. I'm using a title for each of the characters, so they don't have a name. It doesn't say John or Peggy or you know, whatever, hot, you know, Mitsu or some, you know, name. It doesn't say, it says a title that kind of helps to describe the character. And then it's all the titles were chosen to be reminiscent in a way of each of the characters. Okay, so I can run through those. And anyone who knows about the characters or who they're based on might be able to see where I came up with those names. Alright, I think we're good as far as focus goes. Okay. So, as I've touched on before, variables are being used for the XY axes for each of the characters. That's so the joystick is controlling variables, it's not controlling the sprite directly, the variables are controlling it. What that does is makes it so I can control those variables without any kind of joystick input. It also makes it so that those variables control other aspects of the game other than the character. So the variables can be used to control background aspects, the variables can be used to control the other characters. In the case of the kind of fake AI that's going to be generated for the one-player story mode, that's going to be essential because I want the AI to say, oh, this direction is being pressed, so I'm going to do this or that or the other, and so those variables will be able to be used for that. Also, timing is essential. When you do just a joystick directly connected to a sprite, you're getting the full speed of that sprite in the system, and most of the time it's either going to be too fast or you're going to find that you want to fine-tune the movement of the sprite. You can set up timers or you can use variables or a combination of both. Okay. So I'm running through the code real quick. I'm going to zoom the camera. I'm going to see how this looks in this zoomed in mode with the actual screen here in a moment. So now, after the first group of sprites is gathered, we can see this. Select songs. The select songs has right now 4 background music songs. A couple of them are tentative. They may or may not stay in the game. But I know the first one's definitely staying in. It's a song I wrote kind of for action-oriented games, and it's going to be used probably in several of my games because it has, I think it has a good kind of exciting action element to it. Okay, now we have the B block. This is the second instance of graphics. I've also brought in the Fireball sprite again, so there won't be any flicker or shimmer in the normal interactions between the characters in the game. However, if it could be that if you use a Fireball move with one of the characters that can do that, then there'll be a slight shimmer between the characters while that's going on. It's not going to be like the original Street Fight World game, where the characters were in a state of flux pretty much all the time. They were shimmering, flickering, or whatever. It was tolerable, but it was, you know, not preferable. And so this game focuses on graphical clarity more than just, you know, the novelty of having the essence of Street Fighter 2 all over everything. This is a game in itself, the same type. And that brings me to the next subject that's going to be discussed today. Is I changed the title of my game, and it's a more modern title. It's a more comedic title, but I think it's a good title for the game. I think it's a perfect title for the game. So we're going to see that here soon too. Second player graphics again. These two are the layers. Then again, it's going out to the song. Now the reason it's going out to the song in every instance of the loop is because the timing of the song would be affected. Now suppose I wrote a song and or suppose I want to be able to play any of these songs at half speed. Like I'm like, okay, I'm going to play this song fast. Oh, but for the end I'll play that same song only half speed. Okay? Then in the second or fourth or first and third instances of the blocks of the loops that gather the information here, I could omit that particular song with regards to a variable. So suppose I wanted BGM 1 to play at half speed. Well, I have it being reached out and the data for it grabbed with the Go sub 4 times. So if I cut out 2 of those times, and you don't want them to be 2 at the same time because that's going to leave a big gap in your song. So it would be either happening at A and C or B and D, respectively. My song would be at half speed because it's reaching out for the note change half as fast. But because I need to be able to have the exact timing of the song. Now, the way I deal with songs is in part the way it was dealt with using some things that were taught by programmers online. So there's a programmer online who said, hey, here's an easy way to do songs on the Atari in case you want to. And like I said, I adapted it to my own use. His was for one song. His could have been for multi-channels. His had no variables for fluctuation of the song. So I adapted it so that the songs can fluctuate, i.e. volume and channel can fluctuate. Not channel, volume and, I'll just say instrument, but it's the code that is controlling the wave. The channel's actually 1 or 2. In this case, it is only channel 0 that's producing the background music. Channel 1 is reserved for sound effects. This will make it so that all music and sound effects coexist without interrupting each other. Okay, so I don't want a sound effect to happen and then the background music to stop working because the sound effect has happened. I want the sound effects to work right alongside the background music. So as we're running through, now we get to where the background music has its own place. We have different BGMs, BGM 1. These are fluctuations, where I have a variable at the top, in this case 27 and 28, and they're constantly adding every time this is accessed. Each of these different fluctuations take place in the channel. Okay, so here we're having 3 and 14, 3 and 6, 2 and 6, 3 and 14. 14 and 6 are the wave that the channel is producing. Okay, so there are several different forms of wave, anywhere from a screeching, yelling, ear rape tone to a grinding kind of explosive car engine going on forever. Okay, some of them are like just high-pitched beeps, and you can fluctuate those. So you have 3 controls, and one of those controls is being taken care of all the time. Okay, but the other 2 can easily be fluctuated. Now, so those first things, the variable there, as crude as it is, that's allowing me to input changes that go along with the timing of the song. So an easy way for you to put a drum beat in your song is to have a fluctuation there that is repetitious. Suppose your song is 100 beats long and you want a drum beat to happen every 10th and 14th beat. Well, then you can put a variable that's the same length as your song, and then you can say at this interval change the sound. And so that's really what this is doing, and it takes some tweaking and fine-tuning. I had to do that when I put this song in here to get it right where you want it. I hope that's not freaking out with the focus. It loves to do that. So down here is the music timer. If music timer 0, then go sub, change music note A. This is nearly word for word the code that was presented to make music online. But what I've done is added A, B, C, D, or whatever, so that I can have more than one song, and then it can be reached out to. This could also make it so that with proper timing, different segments of songs can be accessed. So suppose you come up with 4 different compatible parts. You could play the first, second, third, fourth. You could play the first and third. You could play the second and fourth. You could play the second and third. You could play them at half speed. You could start them at half speed and then later play them at full speed. Kind of like when your time's running out in a Mario game or in a video game. Your time's getting ready to run, so the song is twice as fast. Okay. I'm having some coffee because it's early. All right. So that music timer, 0, go sub, change music note A, music timer equals music timer -1. That's cycling through a data counter. I'll show you that later. All of those go along with this dimension hole up at the top. So I've got my randomizer I'm going to change. I've got my background color. I've got the score controller. This will make it so that the score can be read, and so things can happen based on the score. It also gives you tighter control over the score. Then the bottom group there, dim music pointer equals U. I'm going to scroll down so that there's more code on the screen to avoid blurring. But we have at the top, let's see if I can find it here for you, right about there, dim music pointer equals U. That's a variable is now being seized for that dimensional. Then we have music timer, T, and temporary audio volume, temp odd V, temp odd volume, V. So U2 T and V, if you notice in my little turnkey reset module, those variables are not present. None of the variables that are being seized for use in the game are going to be present down there because I don't want them to be manipulated within that beginning part. So they're ready to be used. Now because music pointer, music timer, and temporary audio volume all have their own variables and they're dimensional, later in the game those labels are what you will call for to access those 255 count variables. So I'm going to scroll down. Here's my basic setup for audio volume. The beginning channel is 14. This might be able to be changed. And then of course my background music is being go to. Now, so here's for the first song, BGM 1 has all of these manipulations. BGM 2 doesn't have any manipulations. It's just saying if the timer's there, go to B and take the timer down 1. Each of them goes to a level selection area called level setter. Okay, so there's the third BGM. It has minor fluctuations. Okay, the counters all go along with the timing of the fluctuation. Again, if you wanted a beat to happen every 10 counts, then you could set the variable. If variable is less than 11, then variable equals variable plus 1, else variable equals 0, and then you've created a 10 count occurrence. And then you can have that once it's at that count, then that fluctuation happens with your channel or your volume. Okay, so the code might be able to be refined even more. This has been copy and pasted from songs that I've written and kept in other programs. So then I've got BGM 4. BGM 4 is special in that it uses a combination of timing to change to two different sections. So it's actually the fourth song is a first part and a second part. And the first part is going along with some longer timing. And this takes fine-tuning. This isn't something that's as easy to do. What I've done is two variables are working. When one of them reaches its repeat mode, so it's going to count up to 165, the first variable, then once it reaches that and restarts, it hits 0, then the other variable, which in this case is variable 28, goes up 1 count. Then that's giving me a long timer. It's basically giving me, you know, it's a pretty long timer. So it's waiting for that first loop to happen, and then it's saying, okay, I'm going up only 1 after that has happened. And so if variable 28 equals 8, then variable 28 equals 0, that's giving me an 8 count, or it's giving me a 7 or 8, in this case an 8 count cycle. And then at the bottom we can see the timers are being reached out for the notes to change the song. One of them is if it's less than 4. So 0, 1, 2, 3. The next one, if it's greater than 3. So if it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? Now that means it's going to repeat the change music note D go sub several times. So if suppose you're repeating the same chords, you're repeating maybe a 4-chord pattern, then you can use this and repeat that, and so you don't have to write 4 instances of that same pattern. You can just write the pattern one time, and then you're reaching out for it 4 times. And in this case, the notes are complex. Okay, so then I've got my backgrounds. After everything, okay, then it goes to this level setter, and A, which is what is deciding the frame. A1 is A block, A2 is B block, A3 is C block, A4 is D block. And because these are go-tos now and not go-subs, they're leaving the bank and going to bank 5 where draw screen happens. That's a huge amount of cycles relieved from the system, because where it was go-subs that were using 250 plus cycles every time they left, these are way, way, way less. They could be 80 cycles or something like that. Okay, so then I've got my music notes. Tied to the dimensional variables is change music note A. Your music pointer is increasing. Okay, you have a memory location for the data, which is in FF there, $FF, temporary audio volume. Okay, so you're assigning temporary audio volume to that variable. The variable is constantly changing. What I've done is squeezed if not switch black and white, then temp audio volume 3, else temp audio volume 0. That's a music shutoff switch. If I put that in the loop, then when you flip your color black and white switch, it will turn off the background music. Suppose you, like a user, about 7 or 8 years ago said to me on Atari Age, whenever I turn the music on in your game, my dogs start freaking out and running around the house and barking. And I said to him in response, well, the volume is at 2, so I don't know how to help that. If I could make it quieter, you won't be able to hear it at all, and if I make it louder, then it will probably be worse. Okay, so data music, data A, these are notes and durations. Okay, 12 is the note, okay, 60 is the duration, the count. So you can see in this little section right here, you have data music, data A, and then you have lots of counts. Now anyone can learn from this, and I recommend, as I'm kind of cruising along here, if you want to pause this and say, I'm going to try that out, you can. Go right ahead, pause it and look at it. Maybe type it while looking at it or something. If you've got more than one, suppose if you had a laptop with your programming language and you had a TV or a computer screen or something where you could zoom in, you can use this. Okay, it might take a little more work than what people might want to do, but I have to run through this quick because my videos are 1.5 hours long, and who would want to sit through 1.5 hours of this? Okay, so this is the first song. Change music note A. Here's the second. Music note B, a much larger song. The timer here, if music pointer is greater than 255, that's a full variable usage of the music pointer. Up here is a much shorter song if it's greater than 75. If you don't do that, you will have breaks in your song after it's completed one loop of the notes. You want to fine-tune that music pointer counter to match the end of your song. Unless you want a bunch of crazy, beepy, random, screechy stuff happening at the end of your song. Maybe you want that, that's fine. Okay, music note C is another song. Then we have bank 2, because I'm running out of room in bank 1, reaching out for music note D and music note E, which are the 2 parts for the title song. Now I have a mode label. In the mode label, this is for the title screen. This title screen and 1-player mode activations. This uses different variables. I might change it back to the original variables used for controllers later, but for this, I'm making sure that it doesn't in any way affect how the variables will be when the game actually starts and you're using the joysticks to control the characters. So this is just for that brief instance where you're choosing the mode of gameplay. And there's a lot of complex stuff going on in this little label here. Joystick fire is activating the title screen's game selection mode, where you can either choose story mode, which is actually two different story modes, but that's kind of hidden. It's you choose a character, based on the character you choose is the mode of story that's going to happen next. There's the left side characters versus the right side characters, which will include 2 of the bosses. Then there's right side characters versus left side characters, which will use the whole 6 character spectrum of left side characters. And of course, some of them are color variants. There are essentially 3 characters on the left side that are distinct, made from intentionally created, controlled use of the Ryu characters' first and second sprites combined with unique sprites for 2 other characters. So I have a girl, 2 variations of that girl, I have Guile, and then I have 3 variations of the Ryu sprite, totaling 6 different characters. Okay, they all have different names, they're going to have different speeds, they're going to have different moves, they're going to have different stuff. Okay, so when this collects up that data, it's saying, are you pressing left, are you pressing right? And this code here, as big and as crazy as it looks, is making it so that you can cycle through the characters for the story mode once the game is started. I can show all of that here in a moment when I actually start the game. Now underneath it, code that I haven't filled it yet, but it's going to be the next part that I put in, is the versus mode right side player activation. What'll happen is when when someone wants to play a 2-player versus mode, which, you know, because of the condition of the world, I would think that many people don't have friends or don't have a second person to play with, so the majority of these gameplay experiences are going to be left or right side story mode games versus the, you know, fake AI, bad guy, enemy stuff. But if you're lucky and you have a friend or a kid or a spouse that you're not currently torturing too much, then you can actually hit the right side joystick button, and then that will activate the versus mode, where you can both pick a character. You cannot both pick the same character. I don't want the screen freaking out. I don't want shimmering or flickering in it. So that will change it immediately to a mode where your left side and right side are picking left-right characters. So the left side will be the Ryu, girl, or Guile. Right side will be different forms of the Mai sprite or the Terry Bogard character. And I'm thinking I might allow the 2 boss characters to be unlocked somehow, or possibly right out the gate used for the versus mode. Okay, so there are 2 boss characters. I've come up with the patterns for the story modes of this game for each side, and I'm actually going to try to put in bonus levels. So there'll be 2 matches, a boss fight, a bonus level, 2 matches, a bonus level, and then the final boss fight. So there's going to be 2 bonus levels. There's going to be lots of matches mixed in there. And so that's what I'm targeting. That's the goal I'm going for here. We have versus controls. Now I've copy and pasted versus controls into 3 different locations. And that's so that later I can manipulate those controls for the AI that's going to be in the 1-player modes. So the first thing you do is make the versus mode. That way you have all of the moves programmed and all of the timing for every character. And then you put those in the 1-player mode and then get rid of the right side controls and program the interactions that would otherwise take place if someone was controlling that. So you're going to tell the variables with some type of random generator. The random generator may be linked to difficulty, and so then that will be in control of the moves that the enemy character will do. And it's complicated, but not as grossly complicated as it might sound. You're really just saying, If this random number is this, then do this move. If not, do this move. And so then you do a handful of those, and your character is very hard because they're endlessly throwing fireballs and jump kicking you, or easy because they're moving around a lot and not attacking so much. And then that's the difference between a difficult character, you know, and a really easy one. Now, I put remark statements in there. You've got your reflecting, you've got your fire button control, left player direction counters, this first group. You've got left player jump counter. This controls the whole jump. So when you jump, it follows a pattern, and then when that pattern is done, you're back on the ground. The control you have when you jump is still working for right and left. So the overall speed of your character will be part of that when you're jumping. So I've got some boss characters that are really fast. When they jump, they're going to jump a lot and jump far. Okay, so the slower characters will be able to get over you if they flip over you, but you know, the faster characters are going to have more spread when they jump and you press a direction. And we've got the right side player counters. These are the same. They're just for the right side player. Now we have the individual character movement counters. Okay, so each character, and these are code names, these aren't the names of the characters in the game. And then down here, these variables can be adjusted for speed. So if you want your character to move much faster, then that variable would be increased. And as you can see, it's already different. So characters can move fast or slow based on those. And I've worked the screen limits into this statement here. So your character is C, whether it's being reflected or not is H. Then the counter, these are the counters for the joystick's left and right movement. So you don't want it to happen all the time. That right there is basically when you press the direction on the joystick, there's a soft area where your character is not just immediately ripping across the screen. It is a undetectable amount of time, but what it is a form of in-code debouncing, so that you're not just getting a rapid fire or continuous result from the joystick. There's a pausal kind of identity there where it's counting 8 counts, including 0, and then in the direct middle of those counts is 4. That's when you're actually reaching out and doing and grabbing the data. And you know, if you want to speed up, that can be shrunk, and then the counter for the variable that controls it can also be shrunk down. You want to move twice as fast, then variable 0 and 1 can be 2, and then the counter for the joystick can be 4 instead of 8. And then all interactions are twice as fast. I don't want that. This is a comfortable speed. And then you have the right and left side limits on the screen. Variable 4 is the x-axis that's tied to your character. And so the left and right movement can only be up to 130 on the right side of the screen, or as far back as 16 on the left side of the screen. Those are the invisible bars that lock you into the screen area. Otherwise you could just run off the screen and then come up on the left side of the screen. And there are many ways to do that. This is the way I choose to do it. And in this case I do have some problems with it where collision and certain interactions can push the character inside of the boundaries, but there is no way to actually leave the inside of the screen and go all the way off to the left, come up from the right side, or be knocked off the screen or anything like that. There's just some minor tweaks that need to be done so that the characters will be perfectly seized within that cube. And but for the most part, it's 95% perfect. They stay right within those cubes. And then the interactions will be fine-tuned so that your characters can't be knocked out of that limit. And that limit's the same for everyone. Now, because the reason it's variable 4 less than 131, and then there's a second instance, variable 4 greater than 15, well, when you're pressing to the right, you don't have to worry about the left side limit because you're not going left. So the right side limit is less than 131, meaning that the x-axis counter is skating along that horizontal line, and once it reaches 130, it won't go any further. It says, oh no, it doesn't meet that one condition, and so I can't go beyond. Then of course I have and no collision. So this will happen if no collision, and then that adds to the collisions that are already happening. It's saying that you're not just moving straight through another character. This is blocking you. If you're colliding, then you're also not moving. And then to make it so you're not just locking into each other upon collision, there's another line that says if you do collide, it knocks your characters back away from each other slightly based on the reflect. If they're reflected, then the left side player is coming from the right side player is coming from the left, and so if they run into each other, they are knocked backwards slightly. And then that makes it so that this non-collision part doesn't just lock them together the very second that they're touched on the screen. They touch on the screen. Otherwise, you would have no control. Your characters would collide, and then no control would be accepted after that. So because they're getting kind of knocked back a little bit, you regain control instantly, and it causes a bump, like you're nudging or kind of colliding with the character, and it has kind of a bounce back effect. Okay, each of the characters' movements and speeds. Okay. Now this is a copy paste, which will be changed later for this bank, for the AI controls for the left side one player story mode, and they're the same data. And this is what's going to be changed so that the right side joystick doesn't have any input, but instead variables and random numbers are controlling the right side player. That's your story mode. And it's for the left. Here's story mode for the right side characters, meaning that the left side joystick will be eliminated and variables will control all the motions of the left side character. Of course, you're going to start on the left side anyway. So you pick a character that's a right side character for that story mode. That character is still going to appear natively on the left side of the screen, like is what's customary, and the other characters will be on the right side of the screen. That's one thing that's going to have to be put into that particular loop. Now we're into the backgrounds. Now the backgrounds were each their own label, and then the call-outs to go back to the main loops to gather the sprite information had to be at the end of every individual background label. And what that ends up doing is making a whole bunch of wasted code, because at the end of each one of them has to essentially say exactly the same thing over and over and over again. And I talked about this before. I said that the way to eliminate this is to use variables. So now the level variable is controlling, along with timers, which background is being shown. And then up at the top you can see I have the level variables, L0 through 5, and I can add more later. I will likely add more backgrounds so that there's more variety going on here. Right now I have 5, and then 0 is the title screen. So there are 5 unique backgrounds. Some of them use the same PF heights. So if you want to use nearly, if you want your backgrounds to only be limited by the amount of space you have, then don't change your PF heights. Because with PF heights, the drawing of that background and the space it takes with the 8th bank is only PF heights. The rest is code. And so when PF heights is called out and it assigns the width of each background, then the background, more than one of these playfields can then use that one instance of PF heights. Okay, so I have several different instances of PF heights. If I was to add one more, it would exceed my 8th bank limit. But that doesn't mean I can't add more backgrounds. I can just add another background that's using one of those PF heights. Now I'm getting into the background. 0 is my title screen, and then I have an animation that happens on the title screen. I have names of each of the characters. Now we have the first actual playing background, and then the second, third, fourth, with animation for the fourth. Okay, now when you look at this, hopefully this isn't blurry freaking out here. Okay, L4. The animation of the propeller. The cycle count for using PFH line was very high. Now, if you're just using tiny sprites and you're not eating up all the nth bank and taking up a ton of cycles with Go subs, then the method that I showed before with variables and then using the variables in PFH line is totally doable. But I was cranking way past the cycle count with that, combined with graphics and motion. I eventually tweaked it to where the characters could be on the screen, but once they started jumping and math for missile placement and ball placement was changing, it exceeded the cycle count. So instead, I made the helicopter, which is L4, as you can see right here, change. Now, because L4 doesn't have a variable, once it's L4, that's the screen that's going to be prepared. But then, if there's a variable counter, in this case it's only 2 counts, E1 and E2, which is happening if L4 is happening, then there's an E counter that's if E is less than 3 equals E plus 1, else E equals 0. Then only the top 3 lines of that background are changed. Now this doesn't cause any problems because L4 is putting that graphic up on the screen no matter what. And then the second instance is, oh well, wait though, these top 3 lines are actually different. I don't have to change the entire screen. I don't have to use up that much code. That's the propeller. And it looks great. It's super fast and it really looks like a, I'll show you here in a moment. Okay, L5, then here we have the draw screen, and then we have the call out to each of the individual blocks. A is controlling that now. This is A block, B block, C block, D block. And these all go out to get the second instance of player graphics. Then we're in background 2. This is the second wave of graphics for the background. Each of these are the background colors, the playfield, which is going to control the ball width. 0 is 1 pixel wide, 2 is 2 pixels wide. 0 is 1 pixel wide, 1 is 2, I think. No, 3 is 8 though, so it must be something different than that. I think it's 1 is 1. Either way, 3 and 1 are controlling the width of the ball. PF0 here is the bars on the sides of your screen. And then these left 4 zeros control where a complete row from bottom to top is a selected color. So playfield color can then be applied to go over the background color on the right or left side of the screen. SC back is my score background color. It's a strip of color that goes where the score is, and that adds some more depth to the screen. Suppose I have a street, the street is gray, I can make the score background color gray as well, and it pulls the vision of the visual out towards you a little more. It's not so letterboxed. Okay, ball placement for each individual screen. The ball I might use for additional details in the background. If you want, you can animate the ball and have it moving all over the place. You can have it growing or shrinking. I guess you can have it be 1, 2, 4, or 8 pixels wide at any particular time with timers and counters. This variable is being used as a placeholder. So it's identifying the level that you're on. It's not counting, it's just saying L0, these are the things that go with L0. Okay, we have our second instance of PF heights, which are mostly different than the first instances. And then the additional graphics. We have the title screen, we have the story and versus mode. Here we have the first of the second instance of Playfield 1, the levels 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now if you look here at the, here, if L is less than 3, so if L is 0, 1, or 2, then PF heights. That means 0, L0, L1, and L2 are all using that same PF heights list. And I can add more. Until I run out of room, I can keep on adding playfields. And as long as they use one of those, and I can mix and match them if I want, I guess. You know, you have control over it. So you're not going to run out of room with PF heights as easily. Here's the second one for the helicopter. It doesn't have animation. It's the part that has the little crates that say US, and it has the other parts of the helicopter. This is the light that's part of the hangar behind the helicopter. Then we have a more complicated end. So for the second frame, it's either going to go out to C block because it just came from B block, or it's going to go to a control. Okay, so the way this works is a control is only grabbed every 4th loop. So I've got 4 loops happening constantly, and so what that does is it gives me a lot more control over the speed of the character and the effects going on in the backgrounds. Okay, so that means when A is 4, and as you can see, there's a whole bunch going on with if A is 4. That means that this is the end of the D loop. And at the end of the D loop, it draws a screen and then it goes out. So effectively, the very first thing that's happening in the game once it's in motion is that. Because it's actually at the very end, after the draw screen, of the last thing that's happening. So once that draw screen happens, the very last bit of graphics information and all the updated data is put up on the screen. And then the A4, if H is 1 or 0, and A4 variables that are taking up the bottom portion of the screen here, that are like around here, are going out to where they need to go out to. And those are going to change. Variable 18 is the placeholder for the modes. So variable 18.1 is versus, but if you look up at the top, variable 18.0 now has a place, and it's modes. And that's going to be where you decide what character you're going to be and what mode of game you're playing. After you decide, then variable 18 is going to change to start your loop to grab controls and AI and updated variables for either versus mode, the left side single player mode, or the right side single player mode. Okay. Then we have player graphics, starting in bank 6, reuse graphics. Now here, reuse second frame is also used for some of the graphics for Guile. Okay, and so at the top here, I have an entire chunk of data using the missile for player 0 to sculpt Guile's hair. So it says, remark, Guile's hair. That's what's up at the top. I'm going to go ahead and show right here, this line here, Guile's hair. Then we have Guile's hair when squatting or jumping, because it's the same frame, and then Guile's hair while flipping. Those all are helping to make him look more like an individual character. And of course he has his own wave of sprites. But what I've done is, like I said before, I've drawn him to also use one of Ryu's sprites. So in this case, the Ryu 2 sprite, which is the less intrusive arms and face, leg divide, and feet, come into play. And so the one that takes up all the space and overlapping and things like that, and you'd be hard pressed to know that they're using the same sprite. I was pretty careful about this. Now as I run through these graphics, you see this folder that said, or this label here, I call them folders, Ryu Duck Kick, and how it's separate. Later, that will not be separate. When the variable is assigned for his duck kick, okay, then that label will be eliminated, and then that sprite will be put up into the main label just for Ryu. And as many of his sprites as can be put there, possibly all, likely all of them, will be moved up. When that happens, the return other banks will be eliminated, freeing up a lot of space. The labels will be eliminated. The color calls will be eliminated. And then specific missile definitions and placement will be applied for that specific instance. And those will all be in that one label. So this is keeping it separate so that it's there in the game ready to be added. But the label itself and the label for all attacks and movements are eventually eliminated. So when I first started this, flipping had its own label, squatting had its own label, walking had its own label. But then when the variables were assigned for that specific motion on the screen, then I eliminate the label, I put the graphics in row with the first graphic, and then I apply the variables to that label. So when it meets that condition, then that's the sprite graphic that happens. Okay, and so my timers are coming in play, my counters are coming into play, the variables are controlling the presence of the graphics. So you could say that variable 12 being greater than 0 or variable 13 equaling 1 are going to use the jumping or squatting sprite. One of these is jumping, the other one's squatting. If variable 16 equals 1 and variable 5 is less than 60, variable 5 is your Y counter. And so that's saying that if you're doing the process of jumping, which is variable 16 equals 1, and your character is that high up in the air, basically, it's that high up on the Y-axis, then they're going to flip. And then there's your little flip animation right here. Okay, here's my kick. No, the second kick. Now the second kick will be tied to a different variable. Okay, so this is going to be tied to a different variable. And all of the second instances of his graphics will be tied to a separate group. Once all that is created, space is eliminated in between the sprites, and sprites are put in a more efficient order that will likely free up space in Bank 8 and allow for even more graphics. Right now, because they're in a certain order, there are gaps filled where you're meeting or exceeding a reserved amount of space for that sprite based on its height. Okay. Kicks and punches, and there's his kick, here's his Hadouken fireball. This is the little fireball, which I intend to be like the original. I'm probably going to make it look like a Pac-Man ghost, because I thought that was absolutely gorgeous. I love the idea of having you throw a fireball and then it looks like a sideways Pac-Man ghost is coming at you. I think that's just perfect. I absolutely love it. Okay, we got the Hadouken, Dragon Uppercut. We also have moves for the other characters too. Every character's going through this. This is their fall, his fall down. Now we have the girl. Now the girl is a new character that's also player 0 that it has 2 different color variants, but is she has some missile stuff to fill in gaps for one of her color variants. It's a little hard to see. So they're fill-ins. I just call her Blonde Girl, but she actually has a different name. That's her code name. And so this will put a missile in a specific place that matches her XY coordinate while she's moving on the screen or squatting or jumping or fighting. And those same missiles are going to be used for the extensions of the arms and legs when punching and kicking too, or for projectiles. So the images here are mostly for just walking, jumping, squatting, and flipping. Later on, and it's good that, you know, those are usually a more concentrated drawing. So there aren't going to be gaps, there aren't going to be a need to fill in gaps. But because when walking, they're wider or taking up more space, you have to do some fill-ins occasionally. And this is how you could add stuff. So for instance, one fill-in I'm likely going to do is I have a red suit variant of Ryu. So ta-da, I'm probably going to add some hair to him. And I'll probably use one of the player 0 missiles to just be a little tiny bit of detail on the back of his head somewhere so that he appears to have longer hair. And that's going to distinguish him from the original Ryu. I also might add spiky, crazy looking hair on the dark bad guy form of Ryu, which I have on here. So yeah, little things like that can be done. Here we have Guile. This is his hair and the actual character. Walking, moving, squatting or jumping, flipping. Now this is his graphics. As you can see, if you look up here, if you know what's going on, this is where Ryu's feet are. But because it's absent here and not filled in, it is no longer flesh-toned feet. Okay, I need to scroll up here, because I already know it's going to start blurring and freaking out. But right around here, around his footsies here, his tootsies, I've left it blank now. And what that does is it gives him boots. And then at the very bottom line, where it would just be a couple of details for toes or something right there for Ryu, I have long, flat, 3-dot chunks. Those make the bottom of the boots. And so being creative like this can give you lots of extra graphic possibilities. This is something where I'm exceeding, of course, I'm exceeding the boundaries here. Before, with all of the moves, with the height of the sprites I had 4 characters, 2 on the left, 2 on the right, and because I have used that method that I came up with of combining sprites for several characters, I now have 3 distinct characters on the left, I have 3 distinct characters on the right, and then I have color variants that are giving me 6 total characters on each side, which is a total of 12 characters. Now, they can't fight, you know, the right side characters can't fight each other. So the bad guy, boss, will never fight a color variant of Terry Bogard or a color variant of Mai or Mai. They can only fight against the left side characters, which is fine. It's no big deal because they're still what could be interpreted as boss level characters on the left side. In the AI, I can make them tougher. So they'll have a boss level kind of presence in the game. So that's not a problem. But having 12 distinct characters, some of them are variants, and then having, you know, you're having 6 characters that you're fighting in a row, and then bonus rounds, that's not too bad. It's not as many as I would, you know, I look at my graphics that I drew for this game and I kind of sigh like, because man, I drew a ton of characters for this game. If I could have all of them in the character, or all of them in the game, the characters that there'd be, I drew all of them. I drew Vega, Balrog, Sagat, Dalsim, you know, I drew a ton of characters for SNK and for Street Fighter. And of course, being ambitious, thinking, you know, maybe, but knowing, you know, I mean, I knew when I drew them that there was no way I was going to fit everything in there. I'm just drawing pixel art, and then, you know, what can I do with this? Later on, I might use that same pixel art to make an Atari 7800 game that uses every one of them. You know, so it's not like I drew them and said, this will never be used. I drew them and thinking, this will be used. One day I can use this. Okay. Guile's graphics. There's his duck kick. And they're different. I've tried to make the movements different. Shouldn't just look like a regurgitated Ryu move. There's the girl. Now we get into Mai. Okay. And she has her half of her sprites used for a different character, and so a missile comes in and helps out with that, one of the player missiles. And we have Bogard coming up here in a second. There we go, Bogard, and he has some lots of missile definitions for specific characters. Takes a lot of those definitions because when the reflect changes, then the placement of that fill-in part or that additional missile graphic can also change. So if it's being added to your character's X coordinate and Y coordinate to fit where you want it to fit on the character, then when you jump and flip and are reflected, you might have to take away from that amount so that it's in the right place. And there's a little difference. The colors really can kind of shift around a little tiny bit where the sprites actually end up being. You don't get an identical perfect reflection unless you've put just the right colors at just the right places, and sometimes that's hard to do. So there's a slight variance to the character when they're being reflected. It's sometimes not perceivable, sometimes it's obvious. So you get that. My coffee's getting cold here because I'm talking so much. Yeah. So that's all the stuff. This very bottom thing, this is just a additional code for the background, the score color. And that's what this variable here is for. Dim score back S is used. And then down here is some injected assembly that's saying, hey, this is a mini curl. Store the sync. Load the accumulator with this new label, which is score background, and then store in the accumulator what your color background is. And then return. This is assembly. And so what that does is it creates the SC back condition, which in backgrounds here, right about here, it creates this SC back equals, and then you can put in a color. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start the game and adjust the screen slightly here. Take a little adjustment here. I give you Yeet Fighter. What I might do is make it so that each row of the word yeet comes in from each side. So it's not just rushing in from the left side every time. I'll have the top line be from the left, the second line be from the right, the third line be from the left, and so on, so that it's like it's pulling in from both sides and then combining. And then of course I have the word fighter doing a clean scroll up. Oh, now I've chosen a character. Now I'm going to brighten the word story. For now, it's just matching the bottom color there. And here's the first character you can pick. It's Ryu, but if you do a little homework, Ryu is either school or dragon. And so I'm going to call him dragon instead of school, if that's okay. We have different characters here. This is the girl. Why is he called Master? Well, I'm going to change the colors so that he is verifiably blonde haired. I'm going to add a missile component so his hair is long, And I'm pretty sure Ken's last name was Masters. Ken Masters, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong, but I think Ryu might be Ryu Hayabusa, and Ken is Ken Masters. I might be wrong about that. I don't know. I'll have to dig it up. Now, Guile is not going to be called Guile, and he's obviously military, and so he's called Soldier. I couldn't fit Soldier Boy in there, so. Huh. Now we have the dark Ryu form, and I'm probably going to put some crazy looking spiky hair on him. So that's the other variant of the girl. That was the most tentative of the names, but I like it. I'm probably just going to leave it that way. And I'll probably make her really light and really fast and kind of weak, I guess. Like less impactful. Now we're in the S and K characters. I found out that the name Mai is from the word for dance. So the original first instance of Mai I'm calling Dancer. Rocker. Why is this guy called Rocker and he's a different form of the Terry Bogard sprite? Well, in the story, Fatal Fury, Mark of the Wolves, or whatever you want to call it, Geese Howard kills Terry Bogard's father, and so they avenge his father's death by killing Geese, but Geese Howard has, who names their son Geese? Wow. He has a son named Rock. Geese and Rock. Wow. We're just naming people after things here, okay? I'm guilty of that myself, so I can't, you know. But anyway, so Rocker is kind of a combined reason here because he's got the hat on and vest and stuff. He kind of looks like a trucker or a rocker, like something like that. But also because he is representing that son from Geese Howard that Terry adopted. So Rocker is a callback to Rock. Okay, we've got Butterfly, who is the form of Mai is called like a butterfly form or something like that. So that's to remember Mai's form. And these are all the characters. Oh, well, of course, there's the Terry Bogard character. And I'm calling him Wolf because Mark of the Wolf. Mark of the Wolf is the game he's from. We got Fatal Fury and Fatal Fury 2. It's whatever, Garo Densetsu, something like that. It's called Mark of the Wolf. So Wolf is a throwback to the original game that this character is from. So cycle through again. And of course you can go left or right. You say, oh, wait a minute, I want to be that one. We'll cycle back through these. So this is the new name for my game. I think it's adorable. Okay, so being up here with my variables, I'm going to say level 4. I'm going to say C3 and D1, and variable 18 will be 1. It did not put my characters up there. Oh yeah, that's because I'm not telling it where to put their XY coordinates yet. This is the new helicopter loop. It's like it's having a real fun time focusing on that. So yeah, I've added backgrounds. The title screen's there now. Progress has been made. It's ended up being quite a bit of code, but still, I have a lot of room here. Now Bank 5 is almost completely used up. There's probably enough room left in Bank 5 for a couple of more backgrounds for within the game. And I might actually be using a second area for the bonus levels. The bonus levels will probably be interactive backgrounds where you are punching a car and then it's breaking apart or something like that. I have to come up with that. So yeah, but yeah, a lot of progress has been made. The game is close to being done. If I look down here in my stuff, I've got almost no space left in Bank 1. I've got quite a bit of space taken up in Bank 2. I've got a little left in 3 and 4. 5 and 6 will be changed, or 4 and 5 will be changed a lot based on, well, 5 is the backgrounds again. 3 and 4 are actually the modes. And then we have 6 and 7 are the character sprite graphics. And I can put code in there, but chances are that's going to be taken up a lot by the actual fighting code, you know, the moves and things like that. And Bank 8 has a measly, meager 45 bytes left, which if I do anything at all, if I put, you know, if I put a 5-row sprite, then that will be minus 18 instantly. So I've really jam-packed it with graphics. Once I move the graphics around to more convenient locations that fit the pattern a little bit better, that might free up a little more. I'm thinking it probably will, and if I can get a little more room in there, that would be better. Okay. So, one more time here. Actually, I think I'm going to go ahead and put in my original variables. Let me get my I'm going to scroll down here real quick. That's Bank 3. See, here we have Bank 2 versus mode. Okay, and mode. Okay, let me check my background.
Good morning.
Okay, good morning. For D, we've got, yeah, okay. Now, yeah, it's variable 18 equals 1 versus Bank 2. So it's probably just because I removed those original variables. There's nothing to put it there. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in real quick and see if that helps. It might, because the original variables are the starting point for jumping and stuff like that. So go ahead and find my information. Okay, we've got 38, 80, 117, and 80. So 4, 5, 10, and 11. We're going to say 4 is 38, 5 is 80. We're going to say 10 is 117. That's just the other side of the screen. What just happened? Oh, I turned no lock off. 117, 11 is 80. There. Hopefully that won't be that easy. Yeah, there we go. Okay. And we have characters and background music. Of course, there's going to be sound effects in there. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit because it's fun to look at there. And I'll be testing this on a TV today. I've already tested on the TV and haven't had any hiccups or burps or anything, so. Alright, I'll go ahead and put in Guile real quick, and I'll choose Terry. Okay, here we go. Oh, that's not him, that's a different character. Oh yeah, I had to put him in different orders. Well, this is one of the boss characters. I'll go ahead and just put him out there. And it looks like somebody's exceeding. I don't know, we'll see. The music's probably pushing it now. So yeah, a lot of progress has been made. I want to thank everyone who's been watching my videos. I got a new subscriber that's a programmer. I've looked through some of your stuff and I think it looks really cool. I've got some really encouraging comments. I have a Russian subscriber and a Brazilian subscriber. I'm going to go ahead and change this guy to 4 and grab a different background real quick. We'll put L at 5. Okay, what? I think that might be the dock now that I'm thinking about it. No, okay, yeah. So there we go. Now we have the Terry Bogard character. I love the color. I just love it. You don't see this kind of color on a 2600. You don't see it being used in this way. So yeah, thanks for whoever is liking and subscribing and watching. This game is being created slowly but surely. It's going to be done soon. I don't know about 2600 plus compatibility. I think the system is either out or demo models have been out and people have been playing them. And I would hope that, you know, they're considering the broader range of games, but it might just be that they are limiting themselves to, you know, 8K cartridges or less. I really need them to be more open to homebrew. So, you know, for me, the best thing would be obviously 32K if they are super chip games and stuff. I'm really loving this this character. I love it. I love it. See, there's the little bounce back I was talking about. So yeah, if you look at that contrast of color, this background is beautiful. This looks so good right now. I love it. So yeah, it's be tested on TVs today. Thanks everybody for watching. Hopefully if you want to stop, pause, read code, maybe listen in slow mode, learn from this, or just, you know, watch along with me while I'm, you know, coming up with all of this. This is about to be a playable, functional video game, and I'm hoping it can be out there. 2600 plus or not, this is going to be a real game, and I might try to seek out a publisher. I might try to publish it myself at my own cost. I have a few cartridges I could start it with, and then of course with the money from that I could make more cartridges. But ideally a publisher would be, you know, preferable, so I'm not the one having to manufacture every cartridge. That's easier for me, obviously, in the long run. So, thanks everybody for watching.